What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Surprise Jab Podcast. I'm your host, Zachary, surprising with new topics every single weekend, jabbing you with your daily dose of UFC. And we are here, guys, episode 285, and it's a fun one. Let me tell you, as we have your official UFC PERTH predictions. I'm excited. Carlos Prates, one of my favorite fighters. Jack Della Maddalena, one of the hottest prospects in the game. Actually, who am I saying? Jack Della Maddalena is not a prospect. He's a former welterweight champion now, but, he formerly was until Islam dethroned him. But it's just weird to think that he's been to the top of the mountain. It still feels like he has more to do in the sport. So him and Prates, main event, it's fantastic. We have a bunch of more fun fights on the UFC PERTH card. On today's episode, we're going to be previewing the entire card and giving you my predictions on what we think will take place. As well, we're also going to be taking a look at the NHL and NBA playoffs and discussing the current state of each league and see who is going to be advancing to the second round. As well, the first quarter of the UFC is now complete. We are entering May. All of our events have taken place, so I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on what I think are the top 3 fight of the nights, knockouts, submissions, and events of the year so far, and even my official one for each one. It's a very rough list. I did it in like 10 minutes, so I just kind of wanted to briefly touch on that, especially as we get into the second quarter of the year, which is going to be your May, June, July, and August events. Actually, I guess the first quarter is January to March, so I guess we're going to do the first third of the year. I don't know. I'm just going to give my thoughts on the first half of the year, whatever it is. But let's get right on into it with your playoff current update, however you want to phrase it like that. And we'll start in the NBA. All right, the NBA have had some, close games here and there, but as of late, a lot of the games have been kind of blowouts. I can't lie. We've only had over the last, what is it now? Is it 2 days, 3 days? I think it's over the last 3 days, only 2 games out of like 10 that have not been double-digit winning advantage for a team. So as it currently stands in our bracket, the Celtics, the number 1 seeded Celtics, actually the number 2 seeded Celtics, I should say, are up 3-2 on the 76ers, so that's the 2 and the 7 seed. Celtics are currently up. For the 4, or is it I think it's the 3 and the 6, Knicks are up 3-2 on the Hawks. Both of those have been pretty good series. For the 1 and the 8 seed, the 8-seeded Magic are up on the Pistons 3-1. So you may be in for a massive upset if the Magic can get it done. I absolutely live for that. And then for your 4 and 5, Cavaliers and Raptors are currently tied 2-2. What has been the best series so far? Well, honestly, I'd say Knicks and Hawks probably has been. Then after that, Raptors and Cavaliers. Then I'd say Celtics, 76ers. And at the bottom, definitely the Magic and the Pistons. Because the Pistons, for no reason, just keep losing games. It makes absolutely no sense, but I love it. Who do I think is going to advance? I definitely have Celtics and Knicks getting it done. And at this point, I don't think the Pistons can come back. And I don't know, Raptors and Cavs, I do lean more so on the Raptors. I do think that this Raptors team is pretty freaking good. I didn't realize how good they are when I made my predictions, but we're going to ride with them and see what takes place. For the West, we already have one team, actually 2 teams, I should say, that have advanced. The 2-seeded Spurs manhandled the Trailblazers 4-1, but they had a couple of occasional close games here and there. For the number 1-seeded Thunder and the number 8-seeded Suns, 4-0. It wasn't even close. I don't know who let the Suns into the playoffs, but they absolutely did not belong there. For your 4 and your 5 seed, Lakers currently lead 3-1 over the 4-seeded Rockets. Actually, Rockets are at the 5 seed, and you know what? I'm not surprised. Not surprised whatsoever at that. I really was high on the Rockets, but seeing the Lakers in the playoffs are just scary. They're just a well-oiled machine, and easily the best series, you could even argue for the entire tournament, has been the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. Timberwolves are up 3-2. It's been a barn burner. We're coming back to Minnesota for game number 6 coming up here. So definitely rooting for Minnesota to get it done. Impressive on them for being up 3-2, but it's been super good. So yeah, Spurs will be taking on the winner of that Timberwolves and Nuggets, and the Lakers and Rockets will take on the winner of that series will take on the Thunder. So I definitely think it's going to be Lakers. Then I got to go Timberwolves. And honestly, I really love the Timberwolves odds to make it to the Western Conference Finals this year. If we can just win game 6, if we can just get past the Nuggets, I'm actually very confident we can defeat the Spurs. I kid you not. So we're going to see what takes place there. NBA playoffs have been rolling along. Let's see who the Has there been any high scoring players, performances so far? I know we've had a couple 30 bombs here and there. I don't know if that would be too much work to search through real quickly here, but I've gotten a couple games here and there. I mean, the most exciting part's probably going to be the final 5 minutes of any game. Well, Jalen Brunson's had 39 points there. But, NBA playoffs, they've been all right. They've been good. But they do not pair in comparison to the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, which is obviously the best playoff format in all of professional sports. It's better than the World Series. It's honestly probably debatable. I would say maybe even better than football, all right? It's just something about playoff hockey. It's just better than regular season hockey. So as we currently stand, if I can get a little bracket pulled up here of the Stanley Cup playoffs and see where we're currently at. The Avalanche have advanced in the West 4-0 over the Kings. Wasn't even close. My Minnesota Wild currently lead the Dallas Stars 3-2. I cannot believe it. Both Minnesota teams have a 3-2 advantage in their series. There's no way they choke both of those. Right, you say? I don't know, but certainly rooting for the Wild to win that one. That would be exciting. The Vegas Golden Knights and the Utah Mammoth, I've absolutely loved that series. Mammoth have it at 2-2. They were one of my bigger upset picks in the tournament. I had another one, which I didn't think was an upset, but apparently it was. We're going to touch on that in a second. But that's been a great series. And the Ducks currently lead Edmonton 3-2. I thought they were going to send them packing the other night, but they managed to get, Oilers managed to steal game number 5. So it's 3-2. Gonna have to see what takes place, but definitely has been good there. I'd say more so on probably Golden Knights and Ducks winning, but I'm gonna be rooting for my Utah Mammoth to get it done. My Utah Mammoth, like I'm a Utah Mammoth fan. No. I'm a Minnesota Wild fan. They've just been dueling with the Stars, and I look forward to game number 6 when they throw down. On to the Eastern Conference. At the top, the Sabres lead the Bruins 3-2. That has been a fantastic series. Definitely think we're going to game 7 there. Tampa Bay Lightning and Montreal Canadiens are 2-2. I'm a little shocked at that. I thought the Lightning would have made easy work of the Canadiens, but those Montreal folk, they are not going anywhere. As well, the Hurricanes destroy the Senators 4-0. Not even close. And easily the most compelling series, I'll say, has been the Pittsburgh Penguins, who in Sidney Crosby's final season were down 3-0. It's now 3-2, and they have a chance to make it 3-3 and send it back to Pittsburgh for game 7. So I'm looking forward to that. Come on, Penguins. I think they were my prediction to win the Stanley Cup just because I wanted to pick a team that no one was going to pick, and it turns out it might have been way too risky of a prediction. So, yeah, exciting stuff there in the Stanley Cup playoffs. With the good games you've been getting, it's very fun hockey to watch. So, especially just to touch on that Wild and Stars series so far, listen to these scores: 6-1 Stars in game 1, 4-2, or 6-1 Wild in game 1, 4-2 Stars in game 2, 4-3 Stars in double overtime in game 3, game 4 Wild win in regular overtime, and then game 5 on Tuesday, the Wild won 4-2. So we're heading back to Dallas for game number 6, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Is that how it's working? I honestly, I don't know. I think that they're in Minnesota, but or are they in Dallas? I don't know. It doesn't even matter. But, yeah, we'll be rooting for the Minnesota Timberwolves to get it done. And Timberwolves and the Wild. I'm getting all jumbled up here now that I'm speaking about both leagues at once. But, exciting stuff so far. The round one's having good. And pretty similar, I'd say, across both leagues is that your top teams have been winning pretty easily. And for the middle teams, they've been engaged in some pretty fun series. So, go check it out. Let me know what you guys think is going to take place in both leagues. And we'll discuss once both round ones are over who we think is gonna move on to the next round. But I'll tell you what we are moving on to, and that's a new month in the UFC. And with April done, a lot of exciting stuff has taken place so far in the year. And one of the things we do on this podcast is we do little predictions and we do little award shows and stuff, and we always do little reviews here and there. So just to give a little brief update on where we stand through the first 4 months of the year. I was thinking the year completely wrong in quarters. I realized the first quarter would have been January to March, but with the first 4 months of our 12-month year underway, I just wanted to touch on some of my awards on who I think are currently going to be receiving them. So for starters, we can go with Fight of the Year. Everyone loves Fight of the Year. And my 3 so far, which just come to mind, and we'll go in order of, we'll say, least known to most known. Okay, so for the least known one, I am going to say is Marwan Rahiki versus Harry Hardwick. And people are going to hear that, and they're going to go, I don't know, Zach, who the frick either of those names you just said are. I mean, I don't even know anything about them. Well, Marwan Rahiki and Harry Hardwick threw down March 14th at UFC Vegas, Emmett versus Vallejos. And it was a round 2 corner stoppage, and this was just a bloodbath. This was Harry Hardwick standing there like a brick wall as Marwan Rahiki throws every single strike in his arsenal at him in just compelling, just thrilling fashion. 90 significant strikes to 65 through only 2 rounds. And mind you, this was Marwan Rahiki's UFC debut coming off of Season 9, Episode 10 of the Contender Series. And unironically, he got a round 2 TKO on the Contender Series in a crazy fight, and here he is getting one against Harry Hardwick. And funny enough, I'm just now noticing, I think he's landed a short notice fight on UFC Perth. I kid you not. I think this is breaking news, actually. I was not prepared for this. Marwan Rahiki is slated to take on someone named Ali Schmid, the Hungarian Stallion, on UFC Perth. So we'll touch more on that in a second. That is news to me, ladies and gentlemen. So I've unironically been informed of this, and I wasn't even planning on that. So yeah, that was a fantastic fight hidden on a little Apex card, prelims. Amazing work. Absolutely amazing. Another fight of the year, gonna be the first main event we had of the year, Paddy Pimblett, Justin Gaethje. It is hard to deny how entertaining that fight was. And for how, kind of average UFC 324 ended up being, this fight shined amongst all of them. Gaethje, Pimblett just throwing for the fences, Paddy almost getting knocked out numerous times, and then throwing back against Gaethje. And in a recent interview, Paddy Pimblett actually said he completely pins the loss on himself, but the one thing he wants to say is he was aiming so hard to knock out Gaethje once he realized it was possible that he completely gave up on his game plan to shoot for takedowns, which is evident as he only attempted 5 takedowns throughout the entire fight. But 156 significant strikes, 144. Paddy actually out-significant struck Justin Gaethje, which is insane to think about. And even at Gaethje shooting takedowns, he went 3 of 3 in rounds 2 and 4. So yeah, easily one of the best fights of the year. It's going to be on the docket when we're discussing fights of the year, but certainly up there through the first 4 months. But easily, hands down, my current leader for fight of the year, UFC 327, Josh Hokett, Curtis Blades. I mean, it's going to be nearly impossible to beat. It's quite literally the best heavyweight fight of all time. I can't think of another heavyweight fight that's been better than this. I genuinely can't. 177 significant strikes to 174. Just these two throwing everything at one another. And I mean, Hokett flipping, I think it was 7 or 8 middle fingers at Blades throughout all of it. These two just going to absolute war. The fact Curtis Blades survived the first round is insane. Even the first minute, I thought he was going to get knocked down, and it ended up delivering one of the most classic fights of all time. This is one of the best fights. If you want to get one of your friends into UFC and you want to show them a fight that doesn't end in a knockout, you show them this fight, because this is Josh Hokett and Curtis Blades giving us pure cinema, pure class. It's the most entertaining Curtis Blades fight I've ever seen, and it established Josh Hokett as an absolute star, and by the way, shot him from unranked in the UFC to now being ranked number 5. So Hokett, Blades, we're going to hear more about UFC 327 here in a second, but I mean, just hands down, just amazing, simply amazing. Now, fight of the nights aren't the only entertaining thing we get. Sometimes we get submissions. And, submissions are always tough. It's always tough to choose a submission of the year. But I've landed with 3 so far. 3 kind of, run-of-the-mill ones. So the first one I want to say is an unofficial submission. The first one is an unofficial submission. but it's Alexa Grasso versus Maycee Barber. It's because I've never seen anything like this, a knockout into a rear naked chokehold. It's registered as a knockout. It probably should be a rear naked chokehold. I mean, this is Grasso clipping Barber, and as Barber goes down, she in the same move as her getting knocked out and falling down, Grasso locks in a just tight rear naked chokehold, and Maycee Barber goes to sleep. Now, I think when they really register this as a knockout is because when she hit the ground, she was kind of out, and it was really just, Barber locking in or being locked into the rear naked chokehold is what established it as her being the finish, but I have it more so as a submission. Kind of like how we gave Vulture Walker submission of the year last year when he had 4, but none of them were really like better than the other, but it's just because he had so many. So similar to this, I definitely think that this one should get some notice when we're talking about submissions of the year. The other one, Mario Bautista versus, Vincius Oliveira. It was a UFC Vegas Fight Night main event, and this was just pure slickness of Mario Bautista, showing the levels to the game here with Vincius Oliveira, and the setup of the takedown into the rear naked chokehold in round number 2 was so transitional. It looked so technical, and it just made you realize that Mario Bautista still has finishing in his game plan. It had been his first finish in a couple years now, and he looked good doing it. Plus in a main event, plus in a high-stakes matchup like this, he ended up getting a fight with Corey Sandhagen coming up here in a month or so, so easily up there for submission of the year. And I think when I've looked at all of the main events that we've had, this has been the only one that's ended in a submission besides Hinata Moicano and Chris Duncan, but I didn't think that was more of an impressive submission than this one. So the one submission so far, which I do think is number 1, is Jacob Wickelox and Muin Gafurev. And that's because a guillotine choke from bottom guard and a second left, Jacob gets the tap. Now, mind you, not necessarily that he was losing the fight, but it was still a close fight. He was actually losing the round that he was in, and with time fleeting, Jacob Wickelox throws up a submission, locks it in. Muin Gafurev with a second left, not knowing time on the clock, ends up tapping. So I definitely think you got to give that props. When there's a submission with a second left in the fight, I mean, clearly that's got to be my submission of the year. So we'll see what happens with the other 8 months we've got, but as of right now, that's been the only real submission that's stuck out to me, that's really left a lasting imprint, and it was okay at the end of the day, but still pretty good. As well, submissions aren't the most exciting thing. People also love knockouts. Who doesn't love a good knockout? And knockouts are almost impossible, so I decided to pick 3 good ones to give you guys. The first one, RoboCop, Bruno Ferreira. I mean, oh my goodness. Who doesn't love this knockout? This is one of my favorite knockouts that we've had. If you didn't know the history here, Bruno Ferreira made his short notice debut against Gregory Rodriguez 3 years prior in 2023. He knocked out Gregory Rodriguez in shocking fashion. Just kind of a one punch right on the chin. Down went Rodriguez, and everyone was kind of like, whoa, what in the world? Little did we know, time goes by. Gregory Rodriguez, Bruno Ferreira are kind of like similar where they ended up in their career-wise, and so they're like, let's run it back. UFC 326, Rodriguez, Ferreira, boom, let's do it live on ESPN. Let's make it happen. Or I actually think it was live on CBS, I should say. And it literally took one shot, one knockout for Gregory Rodriguez to put Bruno Ferreira's lights out. 1 minute and 47 seconds is how long the rematch lasted. Opened up a pay-per-view card, only took one knockout, literally took one punch, and down Bruno Ferreira went lights out. He didn't even need a follow-up punch, and just impressive. Just impressive is all I can say. So definitely had to throw that in there for knockout of the year. And another hidden gem. This one is just going to go so unrecognized. I feel like this is going to end up in compilations, but not going to be in people's talk of what's going to take place for knockout of the year. That's not going to be in people's conversation a lot, so I want to give it some props now. Is UFC Fight Night Winnipeg, Marcio Barbosa, Dennis Bazukja. 1 minute and 20 seconds is how long this fight lasted. If you just want to see a springboard knockout, Barbosa catches him with a hook, and Bazukja just goes stiff and falls straight backwards. Looked like a UFC EA Sports 5 video game knockout, where like those knockouts don't look realistic, and you go and see this in real life, and you're like, holy cow, this actually does happen in the UFC. So I think that's got to get a ton of respect. I think it's got to get more attention than it really is, because, oh man, was it good. Oh, man, was it good. It had me out of my seat. It had me cheering. And it really put some, respect on Marcio Barbosa's name, as this is a guy who's coming into the UFC. He's new, Contender Series, and you land a knockout like that. legit as can be. So that's definitely underrated. But my current knockout of the year, and I'm actually going to stand by this for probably not too long, but for the time being, is Kevin Vallejos over Josh Emmett. I don't think everyone really understands how impressive Kevin Vallejos' performance was. 3 minutes and 33 seconds over a guy in Josh Emmett who had never been knocked out before, all right, in the last decade almost. He had one knockout loss to Jeremy Stevens in 2018. Other than that, nothing else. All right. And Kevin Vallejos goes out there and just destroys him in his first UFC main event in an opportunity to crack the top 10. And I really want to give Kevin his props. It was super impressive. It may not be the most flashy, but it was the most destructive just breakdown I've seen. 36 significant strikes to 3 in a 3.5 minute span in round 1 of a main event. I mean, come on. So that's got to be my current running for knockout of the year. But the last thing to touch on is fight of the year now, or not fight of the year, event of the year, because I think we're going to get a lot more good events. But in terms of my events of the year, first off, want to give a shout out to my third one, which is UFC Houston. Sean Strickland, Anthony Hernandez. Now the card opens up and it's kind of dull. You get 4 decisions, then a submission, then another decision, then an overturned fight, then 2 decisions, and the prelims are kind of mid. But then we get into the main card, and the crowd starts picking it up a bit. All right, Jacoby Smith runs through Josiah Harrell, knocks him out. All right, you get a dud between Sergey Spivak and Ante Delege. That's okay. But then, the 3-fight stretch to end the card, Melquizael Costa, round 1 spinning back kick knockout of Dan Ige, Uros Medic faceplant knockout over Jeff Neal, and Sean Strickland TKOing Anthony Hernandez. Oh my goodness, that Texas building was lit on fire, man. It's getting me amped up just thinking about it. It's definitely worth a little revisit there. Another good one I want to give you guys is UFC Seattle. Definitely the best fight night of the year, hands down. I don't think anything has come close to that fight night. I'm going to be honest. UFC Seattle was a blast. Of course, Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer in the main event. Joe Pyfer finally gets the better of Israel Adesanya, finally proves he's legit. That was also the same card as Alexa Grasso and Michelle Barber. You also had Michael Chiesa's retirement, Larian Douglas's round 1 knockout debut, Yuzu Belgori and Mansour Abdul-Malik's crazy fun fight, Terrence McKinney knocking out Kyle Nelson in 24 seconds. The fight of the night between Tofik Musaev and Ignacio Bahamondes is so bloody, so brutal. I loved it. Knockouts from Navajo Sterling, Casey O'Neill, and Lance Gibson Jr. The debut of Tyrell Fortune. This card had it all and is easily the best fight night of the year. I can hands down say that. Where we revisit fight nights of the year, it's going to be hard to top UFC Seattle. But what I have as event of the year, I think it's everyone's event of the year, it's UFC 327 in Miami. It's so fun. It's so good. You get Vicente Luque getting an anaconda choke. Tati Suarez and Matus Rebecca fending off challengers. Kevin Holland fought. Aaron Pico fought. Cub Swanson gets a round 1 knockout in his retirement fight. You did have the worst fight of the year. Dominic Reyes, Johnny Walker. That fight sucked. But guess what? You had Josh Hogan and Curtis Blades. You had Paulo Costa getting a head kick knockout. And you had Carl Zuberg finally winning the light heavyweight championship, knocking out Jiri Prochazka. So, a lot of fun stuff on the UFC 327. It's my current event of the year. And yeah, like I said, a lot of people are probably hating on the year. There have been a couple of downsides. I'll say the last event was a real downer. It was really boring, but UFC Perth is up next. It's going to be exciting, and as we move into the second 2/3 half of 2026, I think this summer is going to dial up a lot of good stuff for fight fans such as myself. So, with that, that's your little first 4 months recap of the year for where I think my awards stand, but we're not going to focus on the past too much because we have the future to discuss. We have a bunch of new fights for UFC Perth to predict, including a brand new one I wasn't even aware of. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, here's your official preview and predictions for UFC Perth 2026. Kicking off our card, we're in the lightweight division as we have Dom Mar Fan, the Street Buddha, taking on Cody Steele. Here we go. What a fun fight to open up the card. Dom Mar Fan, no one knows who he is. He actually won Road to the UFC back in January, and he's already getting another fight in the UFC. Congrats to him. He'll be taking on Cody Steele, who hasn't fought in over a year at one of the last few times we were in Australia at UFC 312. Now, For this fight, Don Marfan is the underdog at plus 155. Cody Steele is the favorite at minus 185. Don Marfan is 9-2. Cody is 7-1. 2 inches in height go to Don Marfan, along with 4 inches in reach. They both stand in the orthodox fighting position. We'll start with the underdog, Don Marfan, who is 26 years old, from Queensland, Australia. Trains at Team Compton, the same gym as Tom Nolan, another former UFC fighter. He's on a 5-fight winning streak, and out of his 9 wins, holds 1 knockout and 3 subs. Of his 2 career losses, both of them have came to Quinlan Sakiad, who we're going to mention in a second. If you know who Quinlan Sakiad is, just wait till we cover him. He's the co-main event on this card. But yeah, Don Marfan fought 3 times on the road to the UFC. He actually fought twice in 2025 and ended up in the final on January 31st, beating out Sang-Wook Kim. All of those wins coming by decision. So excited to see Don Marfan in the UFC, and man, have they given him a fun opponent for his debut as he takes on Cody Steele. Cody Steele is 31 now, from Las Vegas, trains at Syndicate MMA, same gym as Merab Dovashele, Khalil Roundtree Jr. Oh my gosh, who else trains there? They got another fighter on this card, actually. I'm pretty sure Grant Dawson might train there. Davey Grant's a coach there. It's a pretty notable gym out there in Vegas. Now, out of his 7 victories, he's gotten 5 finishes, 4 KOs, and 1 sub. And he had one of, if not my favorite fights of the year last year against Rong Zhu. I absolutely loved that fight. But like I said, that was last year. February 2025 is the last time he fought. And get this, he hasn't even had any canceled fights. Bro's just not been fighting. Did win on Season 8 of the Contender Series. He's a Season 8 Contender Series vet with a round 2 knockout. So it is literally impossible to tell what I'm going to get here, because I'm really high on Cody Steele. I loved him in both of his fights. Even though he lost the last one, he was still an absolute dog against Rong Zhu. I mean, bro just refused to give in. But, I don't know. Don Marfan, he's been on a run. It's hard to see him losing, but I think we're going to go with Cody Steele in this one. I know Don Marfan should be the favorite, but Cody Steele, he just impressed me so much last time he fought Rong Zhu, even though he lost. And, I still think he's got some in the tank, even at 31 years of age. Moving on, welterweight division, got another Aussie. This one's from Victoria, in the captain, Jonathan Mikalev. Jonathan, is that a new nickname? Is the captain your new nickname? He takes on Themba Mamba Gorimba. Themba Gorimba, of course, the fighter, as we have to mention every time, The Rock gave a frickin' house. Jonathan Mikalev is 9-1. Themba is 14-6. 1 inch in height goes to Themba Gorimba. They both have the same reach, and the only difference otherwise would be their stance. Southpaw for Jonathan, orthodox for Themba. Mikalev is a mighty minus 335 favorite. Gorimba is in at plus 270. Jonathan Mikalev is 27 years old, from Victoria, as we said, Victoria, Australia, and he's currently on a 4-fight winning streak. Of his 9 wins, he's gotten 6 finishes, 2 KOs, and 4 submissions, and he's had 2 wins in the UFC. Fought on Season 8 of the Contender Series with a round 1 triangle choke. Fought on that same card as Cody Steele, UFC 312 last year, defeating Kevin Giuseppe by unanimous decision. And fought at UFC 325, of course, in New South Wales, Australia, for UFC 325, where he submitted Oban Elliott in a little comeback fight. Oban was piecing him up on the feet, landed 1 takedown, took his back, and Jonathan Mikalev, you got the victory. So he's been a pretty dominant prospect so far, and we'll see how he does in another name, in Themba Gorimbo. Themba Gorimbo, 35, from Zimbabwe, but now lives out of Miami, of course, because The Rock bought him a house. 8 of his 14 wins are by finish, 2 KOs, 6 submissions, and of his 6 defeats, he's been finished 4 times. And here's the thing. Themba's 4-3 in the UFC. He is currently on a 2-fight losing streak. Those hold wins over Ramiz Brahimaj and Nico Price. The Ramiz Brahimaj one is very impressive, but, what I'll say for Themba is he just isn't that good. Obviously Vicente Luque proved that he can't hang with anyone in the top of the division. And for the Jeremiah Wells loss, that one was bad. That one was just him getting out grappled, almost getting submitted, and It's tough to tell what you're going to get out of Themba Gorimbo. Mostly any other fighter, I probably would have picked Themba, but with Jonathan Mikulav, he's been killing it. He's been doing a good job so far, and with his activity, I think it's going to play into his advantage, so I'm going to predict Jonathan Mikulav to get the better of Themba Gorimbo, dare I say even getting a submission. We're just moving up every weight class, it appears, as we are in the middleweight division next, as Ben Johnston makes his UFC debut against Wes Party Time Schultz. Ben is 5-1. Wes is 8-3. Wes is 6'1". They didn't even put down Ben's height and reach here. They just have no respect for Ben Johnston. All you need to know about Ben Johnston is he's 35. He's from Queensland, Australia. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. He trains striking at City Kickboxing. He's gotten all of his wins by finish, 1 knockout, 4 subs, and his last MMA win was 2024. Now, for Ben Johnston, this guy has been a regional, just an indie, as wrestling fans would call them, a UFLer, if you want to talk about the NFL. Just a guy on the independent scene for a long time now. Had a Muay Thai career, had a boxing career, and is, stuck with MMA for the last 3 years or so. And now he's just wound up here on this card, an opportunity to fight. And he's the favorite at -180. But I'll say, he is 35. He's up there in age. He's born in October of 1990. We share the same birthday month. And they've given him a winnable fight against Wes Schultz. Now, will it be easy? Absolutely not. Wes Schultz, they call him Party Time. That's because he fights pretty, exotic style, if you will. He's 29 from Wisconsin, trains at Pura Vida MMA, same gym as, Ricky Glenn, Montel Jackson, who just fought. 7 of those wins he's gotten have come by finish, 2 knockouts and 5 subs. He's known for that submission game of his. And both of his defeats have come by knockout, or 2 of his 3 defeats have come by knockout. Obviously fought on Season 8 of the Contender Series, knocked out by Mansour Abdul Malik. Fought on Season 9, got a freaking Suvlov stretch, so we know he's good. Then made his debut in February at Mexico City and was knocked out in 2.5 minutes by Damian Panas. So this is either going to go 2 ways, and I'm very torn on which way it's going to be. So there goes the way where Wes Schultz just goes out there and submits Ben Johnston, and that's all we get. But what I'm going to say happens is that Ben Johnston's actually good. Ben Johnston actually has the experience, and he gets a knockout of Wes Schultz. Now, it's impossible to know what's going to happen until we watch them fight. But I'm going to ride with Ben Johnston. He's from Queensland. I love picking the Australian fighters on the Australian card most of the time. Sorry, Dunbar fan. But yeah, so we're going to go with Ben Johnston to win, not knowing a lick about him. Will it pay off? Probably not. Next up, bantamweight division. Colby Slickness Thickness, his last name is literally Thickness, hilariously, takes on Vince Vendetta Morales. Colby's 8-1, Vince is 16-10. Oh my gosh. Both men are 5'7", 1 inch in height for Vince, or 1 inch in reach, my bad, and they both fight out of the orthodox fighting position. So Colby's the favorite, -170, Vince is the underdog, +140. Colby Thickness is another native of Australia from New South Wales, 26 years young. He's gotten 2 KOs and 2 subs, so he's got a 50% finish rate. And he's actually a Hex champion. Hex is a promotion out there in Australia in the New Zealand region. Colby had to unfortunately make his debut against Alexander Topuria. That's right, the younger, actually older brother of Ilia Topuria in UFC 312, February 2025. Would come back on the card in Perth, I think it was actually, against Josias Musasa, Carlos Ulberg, Dominic Reyes in September, and would get a victory. Would defeat Josias Musasa, would look pretty impressive doing it. I think he won a 29-28 decision on all 3 judges' scorecards, and now he winds up here, getting another fight in the UFC. Good for you, Colby Thickness. We'll see how you do against Vince Vendetta Morales. Now, for Vince, I have no idea how he's in the UFC, all right? Vince, 35, Las Vegas, Syndicate MMA. Same gym as Cody Steele. Now, as for Vince, he's gotten 7 KOs and 5 subs, so 12 of 16 wins are by finish. Okay, hello, 75% finish rate. That's awesome. He has gone 3-8 in the UFC and is on a 5-fight losing streak. I genuinely have no idea how he's still in the UFC. I generally don't. So, actually, I think it's 3. I think it's only a 3-fight winning streak. So, pardon my correction there. But fought on Season 2 of the Contender Series, would end up getting a shot in the UFC against Song Yadong, then would defeat Ahmed Zahabi, oddly. He holds a win over Ahmed Zahabi back in 2019. Would lose 2 more fights, and then get axed, all right? He would then leave the UFC, come back, and he'd pick up 2 wins, and then he'd lose 2 fights. Then he left, he fought in Bellator, he fought in Tough Enough, he fought in Rizin, fought all over, came back September 2024, lost to Taylor Lapalus. Then last year, lost to Elijah Smith, and lost to Raul Rosas Jr. So they're giving him tough opponents, to be fair, but he's just not winning. He's not winning at all, and for Vince Morales here, at only plus 140 as an underdog, I just can't get behind you. So I'm going to ride with the South Wales native, Colby Thickness, because who wants to pick against a guy named Colby Thickness? Is that not the most awesome name you've ever heard? I wish my name was Thickness. Zachary Thickness. Oh, that just kind of has a weird undertone ring to it. All right, next up, we were going from bantamweight back up to middleweight as Jacob Mamba Malkoun takes on Gerald GM3 Mearshart. Jacob is 9-3 professionally. Gerald is 37-21. That is right. We're nearing 60 career fights for Gerald. This is number 59. We got a notable 6'1" to 5'9" height advantage for Gerald and a 4-inch reach, 77-73. He fights southpaw. Jacob fights orthodox. Malkoun is coming in biggest favorite on this card, minus 1,000, plus 625. We got a massive underdog in GM3. Now for Jacob Malkoun, you know, this guy's had a pretty interesting run so far in the UFC. He's 30 years old, from South Wales, so he's a native of Australia. Trains at Gracie BJJ Australia, same gym as the one and only Robert Whittaker. Shout out Robert Whittaker. Need to see you back in the UFC soon. And of his 9 wins, he's gotten 3 knockouts. Now, he's just had a weird run. You know, in his debut, 2020, UFC 254, the same card, Khabib retired, knocked out in 18 seconds. Not a good debut. Would come back, win 2 fights, then lose to Brendan Allen. Then come back and defeat Nick Maximoff, then get disqualified against Cody Brundage. 2024, had 1 fight, a weird knockout against Andre Petrovsky, then he finally returned at UFC 325 to defeat Torres Finney in dominant fashion. So Jacob Malkoun is back, hungry for another win. I love the activity, and he takes on the veteran Gerald Mearshart. And Gerald Mearshart, legend of the game, man. Absolute legend. 38 from Wisconsin. He actually has his own gym, GM3. I mean, it's awesome that he has his own gym in Wisconsin. That is so fun. 6 knockouts and 29 subs. That does give him 35 of 37 professional fights he's gotten to finish in. And as well for his losses, he's had 21 total. 15 of those he's been finished. 10 by sub, 5 by knockout. He's gotten 12-13 in the UFC and holds, I believe, a record in either the middleweight division or some division, 11 subs in the UFC. Now for Gerald, it's been a tough going. We're approaching 2 years since his last win over Edmund Shabazian, and he currently rides a 4-fight losing streak. Fought 3 times in 2025, beaten in all of them. Finished in round 1 in the last 2. None really looking too pretty, but it's been a crazy run for GM3. He's fought in Thiago Santos, Jack Hermanson, Kevin Holland, Hamzat Chimaev, for goodness sakes, Joe Pyfer. He's fought a lot of really top-tier talent here in the UFC, and, I'd hate to think this is it, but we're certainly approaching the end. After his last few performances, it's really hard for me to picture picking GM3, so I'm going to be smart and pick Jacob Malkoun, but if GM3 wants to pull something out of the old bag of tricks and get a victory, I'm all here for it, man. So I'm going to pick Jacob Malkoun, but I will be rooting for you, GM3. I will never cheer if you lose. Well, unless I have money on the line, then I will happily cheer if you lose. Sorry, that sounds a bit weird. Next up, light heavyweight division. 2 guys I have no idea how they're still in the UFC. Junior the Juggernaut Tafa and Kevin Christian. Junior is 6-5. That's right, a UFC record of 6-5. MMA record as a whole, awful. Kevin Christian 9-3, and Kevin is 6'7". Junior is 6'3". Wow, and 5 inches in reach go to Kevin. Goodness me, 80-75. They both fight in the orthodox fighting position. Junior Tafa coming in as the favorite, minus 175. Kevin, plus 145, is the underdog. Let's talk about you, Junior Tafa. Let's talk about you, 29 years old, from Queensland, Australia. Of course, the younger brother of Justin Tafa, former UFC fighter. Junior Tafa has 6 knockouts of his 6 wins. Of his 5 losses, he's been finished in 4 of them. Not pretty. He's gotten 2-5 in the UFC, and fun fact, he actually did have a win in Rizin back in 2022. Now, Junior Tafa has had 2 knockouts in the UFC over Parker Porter and Sean Sheriff. He's also lost a decision to Muhammad Usman, been leg kicked TKO'd by Marco Sergio de Lima, been heel hooked by Walter Walker, been submitted by Tuco Tucos, and been submitted by Billy Elicana. So 2025 and even in 2026, just awful for Junior Tafa, especially the Billy Elicana one. Oh my goodness. That was in the bag for you, Junior. That was in the bag, and he choked that. He choked that so hard. Pause, I say, as I unironically start choking right there. But yeah, Junior Tafa was winning the fight on the feet, and then Billy Elicana just managed to make it scrappy, land a takedown, take the back, and it was game over. So, yeah, rough run of late for Junior Tafa, but now's a very winnable fight for him against Kevin Christian. Kevin Christian has only had one fight in the UFC. You know, the 31-year-old is from Amazonas, Brazil. 9 of those 9 wins are by finish. All 3 of his defeats he's been finished in. So, you know, dude's clearly talented. Won on Season 8 of the Contender Series. And then unironically lost to Billy Elicana in his debut. Back in November of 2025. So, very weird. Both these guys have been submitted by Billy Elicana in their debuts. But I will say this. I think I'm going to ride with Junior Tafa because this is the final ride for Junior. If Junior loses, he's obviously going to get cut. You're not going to stay in the UFC with a positive record, 6-6, or I should say a 500 record. But it would just be so fun to see Junior Tafa get a victory. So I'm going to say he brings the pressure, he shuts Kevin Christian down, and he gets the freaking knockout. So this is just wishful thinking. Kevin obviously knows the game plan. You take Junior Tafa down and submit him. But where's the fun in predicting that? There is no fun. So we're going to ride with Junior Tafa to get a round 1 knockout just for the hell of it. Just because we can and we will. Now, dropping down to the middleweight division, Cam Ralston, Robert Brzeziak, one of the biggest sneaky bangers you're going to find on these prelims. All right, this is a fantastic matchup between 2 high-level talent here. Ralston, big favorite, minus 250. I will say, Robert Brzeziak at plus 205, immediately off rip, good underdog buy. Now, breaking down the fight as a whole. Ralston, 14-3. Robert, 18-6 professionally. 3 inches in height go to Cam, along with 3 inches in reach. They both stand in the orthodox fighting position. Cam Ralston is 5 years younger. Now, for Ralston, man, he's come in and he's been a hot prospect. Really, really has. You know, Season 9 Contender Series vet. Makes his debut in Perth. Knocks out Andre Petrosky. Comes back at UFC 325, knocks out Cody Brundage. Impressive stuff from him so far. You know, he's from South Wales, trains at City Kickboxing, currently on a 6-fight winning streak, and 13 of his 14 wins are by finish, which is always impressive. And, you know, since coming into the UFC, Cam's been kind of killing it. You know, came off of Season 9, debuted and knocked out Andre Petrosky, manhandled Cody Brundage, so excited to see, what he does next when he takes on Robert Brzeziak. And Robert Brzeziak, man, 35 from Poland, 12 knockouts, 1 sub, give him 13 finishes out of his 18 career wins. And he was on a 5-fight winning streak before debuting. All of those wins coming by knockout, and did lose to Io Portera, but came back September 2025 in Paris and knocked out Brad Tavares. So this is going to be a really exciting fight. I think a lot of people are going to be heavy on Ralston, which, to be fair, I'm picking him, but I want you to sleep on Brzeziak. Okay, Brzeziak is an absolute dog. Brzeziak was a warrior over in Poland, over in KSW, so keep your eyes on him. Look out for him, and we'll see what happens. But I am going to go with Cam Ralston. I do like Robert Brzeziak, though. The Brad Tavares fight was impressive. Really showed that he has knockout power and that his loss may have been a fluke. But I think this will really determine if he can still hang in the UFC. With that, we get into our main card, a 6-fight main card. This is going to be good. And we open it up with an Aussie legend as Tai Bam Tuivasa is back. One last shot. That's what you got to call this. One last shot for Tai Tuivasa. This is his one last opportunity to remain in the UFC. And he takes on Louis Sutherland, the Vanilla Gorilla. Now, Tai is 15-9. Louis is 10-5. 6'3" to 6'2", 1 inch in height for Louis, along with 1 inch in reach. He fights orthodox. Tai Tuivasa fights southpaw. I don't know why I never knew that. I guess he does. Tai is, of course, the favorite, minus 170. Louis is the plus 140 underdog. For Tai Tuivasa, the favorite, the former top 10 heavyweight, might I add to you, not a lot of people know that. He's coming in this one, 33 years old from South Wales, 13 knockouts out of those 15 career wins. And out of his 9 losses, he's been finished 6 times. He's gone 8-9 in the UFC and was actually originally supposed to fight Sean Sheriff on this card. And unfortunately, he is on a 6-fight losing streak, which makes me very sad. Now, the career of Tai Tuivasa has been absurd. Comes in undefeated, just starts running through guys. Round 1 knockout. Defeats Andrei Arlovski. Gets a main event against Junior Dos Santos way too prematurely. Gets knocked out in round 2. Then loses to Blagoy Ivanov. Then gets submitted by Sergey Spivak. It's looking down. Takes a year off. Comes back, knocks out Stefan Struve. Actually retires him. Knocks out Harry Hunsucker, knocks out Greg Hardy, knocks out Augustus Sakai, is collecting knockouts like infinity rings, and then on the main card of UFC 271, knocks out Derek Lewis, and finally stakes his claim as a legit heavyweight. He then gets another main event against Cyril Gane and impresses people beyond comparison. It was a fight of the night, it was entertaining, but nonetheless gets knocked out. And from there, kind of downhill spiral, just because he had to fight top-tier talent. First up, Sergey Pavlovich, 54 seconds, knocks him out. After that, Alexander Volkov makes easy work of him, drops him, submits him, not pretty. Then we're getting into 2024. He's in a main event. Marcin Tiberius submits him, not looking pretty. And then Jairzinho Rozenstruik absolutely batters his face in through 3 rounds, and yet somehow it's a split decision. One of the worst scorecards I've ever seen in a UFC fight. Came back this year after a 1.5 year long layoff to take on Talashan Teixeira. And man, just frustrating to watch. I picked Talashan, so I didn't think Tai was going to win, but as someone who is not I like Tai Tuivasa. I like him. I respect him. He just has such negative game plans. He has no takedown defense. It's clearly the only part he struggles with because he could have knocked out Talashan Teixeira at so many different opportunities. He also looked gassed, and it was just not a good look for him. But this is finally a winnable fight for Tai Tuivasa. He's finally not fighting someone not in the top 15 for the first time in 5 freaking years. So, of course, we got to ride with Tai Tuivasa, but we'll mention his opponent. He was supposed to fight Sean Sheriff. I don't even know if this is a step up or a step down, but Louis Sutherland is 0-2 in the UFC. On March 21st, he was just knocked out by Brando Peric, pretty easily. 32 from England, 8 knockouts out of 10 career wins. Of his 5 defeats, he's been finished in all of them. He was a LFL champion, fought in PFL and Bellator. There's not much to say about Louis Sutherland. So, yeah, definitely a ride with Tai Tuivasa, round 1 knockout. But if Louis can pull it out, you know what? Props to him. Next up, we actually have a top 15 little heavyweight matchup, and it's a man trying to break into the top 15 as the Balkan Bear, Brando Peric, takes on the 14th ranked Shamil Gaziev. Shamil Gaziev, 14-2. He is the plus 120 underdog. The Balkan Bear at 6-1. Brando Peric is the minus 145 favorite. 1 inch in height for Brando, along with 1 inch in reach, and they both fight orthodox fighting position. For Shamil Gaziev, a lot of people are high on him coming into the UFC undefeated. Lots of wins by knockout. Who doesn't love that? But the 36-year-old who trains out of KHK from Dagestan, now out of Bahrain. Of course, that's the gym with Islam, Khabib, all of those crew. 9 knockouts, 3 subs. Give him 12 of 14 wins by finish. He just never really was able to get over some humps, and those humps being ranked opponents. Now, give him a Thomas Peterson, a Martin Budeya, Dontel Mays, easy work. Give him a Jairzinho Rozenstruik, give him Alto Cortez Acosta. He's going to struggle. So, Shamil, this is a very winnable fight for him. I'll definitely say it's winnable, but Brando Peric is a tough dog, or should I say a tough Balkan Bear. The 31-year-old has came into the UFC from South Australia out of City Kickboxing on a 4-fight winning streak and has just been on a roll. 5 knockouts, 1 sub, 100% finish rate, and he actually defeated Louis Sutherland back in March, pretty unironically, knocked him out in round 1, and before that, in Perth back in September, knocked out Alicia Ellison in round 1, so Brando Peric, hard to pick against you. I do love my boy Shamil Gaziev, but I am going to ride with Brando Peric here. I mean, it's hard to see every single Australian winning, but as I go down the card, I'm like, it just makes sense for some of these Australians to win, and I think this is just another case of it. So we're going to go with Brando Peric to TKO Shamil Gaziev. I have seen Shamil struggle with the takedowns before, so we'll see what happens and just throw up a prayer, as they say. After that, I thought we were going to have 3 more fights left, but I guess we have 4, because Marwan Rakiki has a fight against Ollie Schmid. Marwan Rahiki, I should say. Ollie Schmid, I don't know a lick about you, bro. I don't know a lick about you. This is such a short notice fight. But all I can say is Ollie, his nickname is the Hungarian Stallion. He's 25 years old. He's 4-2. And as for Marwan Rahiki, you know him, you love him. We mentioned him earlier. Two amazing fights, one on the Contender Series, one in his debut. He's 8-0. Dude's a killer. So not much to really say on this one, guys. Going with Marwan Rahiki, I just loved what I've seen from him so far. Ollie Schmid is also 4-2. It's such a odd record to get a UFC fight matchup with, but hey, if they're trying to get Rahiki on the card and this was the way to do it, props to them. So we'll pencil in Marwan Rahiki here, so we got this on record. But yeah, quick little fight there. I mean, I just didn't even have time to prep for it. So shout out Marwan Rahiki. We're going to hope that you can get the victory, because if you don't, I'll just be like, bro, why did I even predict this? But then the final 3 fights, all ranked, all exciting. Let's start off in the flyweight division, as the number 11th ranked Tim Elliott takes on the 12th ranked Steve Erceg. Astro Boy Steve Erceg is 13-4. Tim Elliott, 22-13 with a draw. 1 inch in height for Steve, along with 2 inches in reach. He fights orthodox. Steve Erceg, Tim Elliott fights southpaw. Now, we'll start with Tim Elliott, because for some reason, Tim Elliott is a plus 300 underdog. What is going on? The 39-year-old is from Missouri. 11 of his 22 wins are by finish, 8 subs. He's more so known as a submission guy. And of his 13 losses, he's been finished 7 times, 6 by sub. He's gone 10-11 in the UFC, but half of those wins have come in the latter half of his career. He started off pretty rough. Pretty rough in the UFC. He actually had a first stint from 2012 to 2015 where he went 2-4, was cut, came back in the Ultimate Fighter, where they had a weird season of former people who were in the UFC can now fight to get back on there, and he actually got a title shot against Demetrius Johnson and went all 5 rounds with him. And since that date, he went 2-4 for a stretch up until 2020. But then from 2020 to now, he's gone 6-2. His losses have come to Matthias Nakalu and Mohamed Markaev. He hasn't lost in 3 years. And his last 2 wins have been performance of the night submissions. So Tim Elliott has actually been kind of killing it. Holds wins over Tagirlan Bekoff and Kaya Sakura, which are pretty gnarly. And he actually holds a win over Luis Smolka, who's another name you may recognize as UFC hardcore. As for Steve Erceg, I mean, Steve has been on the struggle bus, really has. 30 years old, from Perth, so hometown favorite. 2 knockouts and 6 subs give him 8 of 13 wins by finish. And like I said, a minus 400 favorite is pretty high if you ask me. Steve Erceg came in, short notice, beats the top guy, David Dork at the time, then beats the top prospect, Alessandro Costa, then knocks out Matt Schnell and is immediately propelled in the title shot category, where, to be fair, he gives Alexander Pantoja a run for his money. He's then knocked out by Kai Kara France at UFC 305, before last year in March was 5-0 by Brandon Moreno. Just not an impressive performance. His last fight did come in August of 2025 when he defeated Ode Osborne in a competitive fight, but I'm going to be honest, guys. I've picked no upsets on this card. I think I've only predicted one guy in Cody Steele, who's not a hometown Australian boy. So I feel like it is just required of me to pick an American, a boy from Mizzou, in Tim Elliott. And I'm also a little pissed, especially let's say Tim Elliott goes out there and gets knocked out pretty easily. The fact that he's such a big underdog is very odd if you ask me. I don't know if there's some secret money coming in about an injury we don't know about, but I just think it's fun to pick Tim Elliott. Plus, I saw that Kai Sakura performance, and it was very impressive. So, the one aspect of the game we've seen Steve Erceg struggle in is the grappling. That's Tim Elliott's wheelhouse. Tim Elliott's only ever been knocked out once, and that seems to be the only thing that Steve Erceg can do. So, we'll see what happens, but I am going to ride with Tim Elliott. I was about to say Steve Erceg there. I feel like that was a Freudian slip, but we are going to go with Tim Elliott, who doesn't have a nickname. Tim T-Bone Elliott. No, that's just not going to work. After that co-main event, one of my favorite new fighters who I absolutely freaking love with every fiber of my being, Quinlan Sakiad gets the opportunity of a lifetime as he takes on the 12th-ranked Beneil Dariush. And as of right now, Quinlan's up to minus 440. He's growing as a favorite with every breath that we breathe. Dariush at plus 335, growing as an underdog. Quinlan Sakiad, 11-1, and mind you, is on a ridiculous 11-fight winning streak. For Beneil, he's 23-7 with a draw, so this will actually be MMA fight number 32 for him here. 5'10" to 6 foot. Height goes to Quinlan. 75-72. Reach goes to Quinlan. He fights orthodox. Beneil fights southpaw. There's an 11-year age gap here. Just crazy. Just absolutely crazy, if you ask me. Beneil Dariush, we'll start with you, ranked at number 12. I mean, legend of the game here in the UFC. 36 years old from California, originally from Iran. Trains out of King's MMA, same gym as, Shogun Rua, Rafael Dos Anjos, a lot of top-tier guys. He's gotten 13 of those 23 wins by finish, 5 knockouts, 8 subs. Been a long time, though, since he got a finish, probably like 6 years, honestly. The last finish was the one they always show, the one over, what was the name, Jakar Close. Yeah, that was a fun fight, but still, nonetheless. All of his losses, he's been finished in, 6 of them by knockout, only once he's been submitted. And fun fact, he was actually supposed to fight at UFC 327 against Manuel Torres. He had to pull out of that fight, and instead, here he finds himself facing Quinlan Sakiad. But for Beneil Dariush, I do want to give him his flowers. Been with the UFC over a decade now. He's a tough guy. He's a really tough guy. He's beaten Jim Miller, beaten Michael Johnson, James Vick, Drew Dober, a lot of top-tier guys. Diego Ferreira, Tony Ferguson, Matus Gamrot. Last win was Renato Moicano, actually, June of 2025, but he is 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and all 3 of those losses he's been badly knocked out in. The last one, the worst one, against Benoit Saint-Denis, 16-second knockout, the worst loss in his entire career. And I will say he has not been active in the last 2 years. He only has 2 fights, which is just not a good sign. Never really a good sign if that's the case. And you could even say in the last 3 years, he only has 4 fights, which is just not that much more pretty. But Beneil's a legend. At one point, he was on an 8-fight winning streak before he ran into Charles Oliveira. So we'll see how he does against Quinlan Sakiad. Quinlan is already 4-0 in the UFC. He made his debut February 8th, 2025. 3 of those wins have been performance of the night finishes. One of them was one of our knockouts of the year last year against Nasrat Haqpasarat, and he recently neck cranked Jamie Malarkey January 31st in 3 minutes. So, dude, 26, 4 knockouts, 4 subs, give him 8 of those 11 wins by finish, was an eternal MMA champ at the age of like 24 years old, and man, he's good. He's smoking cigars, he's hanging with beautiful women, he's going on podcasts, he's flashing ice, he's flashing cars. This dude is killing it on social media, and you already know he's going to kill it in this contest. So give me Quinlan Sakiad to knock out Beneil Dariush. I mean, I hate to be a Beneil Dariush hater, but Quinlan Sakiad is just, he's himmy, bro. He's got the stash, he's got the Aussie flow, he's got style. I'm all here for it. Let's do it. Let's get it, Quinlan Sakiad, you absolute beauty. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we get into our main event, which is minus 110 apiece. The odds makers cannot decide on a favorite, and I don't blame them, as the number 1 JDM and the number 5 ranked Carlos Prates do battle. Jack Della Maddalena, the former welterweight champ, is 18-3 professionally. Carlos the Nightmare Prates, 23-7 professionally. 2 inches in height go to Carlos, 5 inches in reach go to Carlos. They actually both fight switch stance, which is going to make for some fun. We'll start with the number 1 ranked, Jack Della Maddalena. Do they still have him in the men's pound for pound? No, they don't. Good. They bumped him out of there. But the 29-year-old from Perth is 12 knockouts and 2 subs, 14 of 18 wins by finish, which is pretty nice. He actually had a ridiculous 18-fight winning streak snapped by Islam Makhachev back at UFC 322, which, to be fair, a lot of people were giving him credit for surviving Islam, but, I just want to say he still did lose. Guy's had a lot of fun fights in the UFC. He's knocked out Pete Rodriguez, Ramazan Emeev, Danny Roberts. He's had fight of the nights with Bilal Muhammad and Basel Hafez. Comeback of the year against Gilbert Burns in 2024. Close fights with Kevin Holland. Fun stuff all around. So JDM's legit. He is ranked at number 1. I'm happy to see what he does here, but he's taking on a guy who I just absolutely adore, a guy who you could put him in front of Islam Makhachev, and I'd probably pick him to win. And that's Carlos the Nightmare Prates, because Carlos Prates is freaking awesome. 32 from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Out of his 23 wins, he has 21 finishes, 18 knockouts, 3 subs, but since coming into the UFC, it's been all hands for him, man. This dude has hands for days. Comes in red hot. 4 fights, 4 knockouts, rookie of the year, and runs into Ian Gary, okay? And Ian Gary April 2025 was a step back for him. Didn't do anything the first 3 rounds, kind of won the 4th, ended up winning the 5th, and just, left a sour taste in everyone's mouth. But then, between August 16th and November 15th, proceeds to knock out Jeff Neal and Leon Edwards are 2 of the best knockouts I've seen of all time. I mean, the Leon Edwards one was insane, but the Jeff Neal one with a second left spinning back elbow, insane. Absolutely insane. The Leon Edwards one took him from nowhere to somewhere, and man, the welterweight division is absolutely crazy right now, and Carlos Prates is a reason why. I just want to add, every win he's had has been a performance bonus. This guy's already made $250,000 minimum from performance bonuses. That's insane. That's freaking nuts. So if you can't tell from my tonality, I am picking Carlos Prates just by knockout. I'll say with Jack Del Maddalena, I think he's tough. I think it's hard for him to, get knocked out. He's never been dropped in his UFC run so far. The errors I've seen him make are with the grappling, which we can easily bring up the fact that through his last 3 fights, he's been taken down 14 times. He does it on the feet, but, I am confident that Carlos Prates can use his knockout power and get it done. So we are going to pick Carlos Prates to defeat Jack Del Maddalena and be ranked number 1. Because, come on, how fun would it be if Carlos Prates was the number 1 ranked welterweight? Would that not be the most fun thing in the world? I hope it comes true. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are your official UFC Perth predictions. We're in for a good one. We're in for a good card this weekend. I am very busy, the next few week or so. It's my girlfriend's birthday. It's then my girlfriend's birthday. I'm heading back to Minnesota. I got to start applying to new places. I'm heading back down to my college town because a couple of my buddies graduate. So we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. But as for the podcast, I stay consistent with it. Like I said, I never started this with the hopes of it attaining money. All right, I always said that if I ever attained any fame, any fortune, it would come just naturally through the universe, I should more so say God and Jesus blessing me with it. But so far, every week, you can count on me here predicting the card, surprising you with new topics. And as long as you'll listen, I'll continue to make it. So, ladies and gentlemen, y'all stay blessed. Y'all have a good one. The Lord loves you. I love you. And I'll catch you next time on the Surprise Jab Podcast.